The Montgomery family was the epitome of wealth and elegance, a dynasty that thrived for over a century. Their sprawling Westwood estate, with its towering gates and manicured gardens, symbolized their unshakable power. Built on the back of a thriving empire in real estate, shipping, and luxury goods, the Montgomery name commanded respect in boardrooms and social circles alike. To the world, they were untouchable, an image of success and harmony. But beneath their polished exterior, greed and deceit had begun to fester. At the heart of the family was Charles Montgomery, the patriarch whose keen business acumen had multiplied their fortune tenfold. His wife, Eleanor, played the role of the gracious hostess, hosting lavish galas that dazzled society's elite. Their three children, Edward, the heir, Lillian, the socialite, and Thomas, the black sheep, were groomed to continue the family legacy. Yet, what appeared to be a harmonious union was anything but. The trouble began with Charles's sudden illness. Diagnosed with a terminal condition, he was forced to confront his mortality and the future of the empire he had spent a lifetime building. His decision to revise the family trust to ensure its stability set off a chain reaction of suspicion and greed. Edward, as the eldest, expected to inherit control of the company. Lillian, accustomed to her luxurious lifestyle, feared her allowance might shrink, and Thomas, long estranged from the family, saw an opportunity to claim what he believed was his rightful share. Behind closed doors, whispers turned to confrontations. Edward, whose ambitious nature was matched only by his sense of entitlement, began to suspect that Lillian and Thomas were plotting against him. "I've carried this family's name in the business world for years," he declared during a heated argument with his siblings. "Without me, none of you would have your precious comforts." Lillian, sharp-tongued and calculating, shot back, "Don't fool yourself, Edward. This family's wealth isn't yours alone to control. Father wouldn't have built this empire without Mother's connections or my charm securing key deals." Meanwhile, Thomas, the outcast who had spent years abroad distancing himself from the family, returned to Westwood with a quiet fury. His resentment simmered just beneath the surface, a product of years spent watching his siblings enjoy the fruits of a legacy he felt excluded from. "You all think you're entitled to everything," he said during a rare family dinner. "Maybe it's time someone reminded you that I'm a Montgomery too." As Charles's health declined, the family dynamics grew more volatile. Eleanor, once the steadying force, now found herself unable to mediate the growing tension. The once pristine halls of the Montgomery estate echoed with accusations and veiled threats. Then, one fateful evening, Charles summoned the family to his study to reveal the new terms of the trust. His voice, though weakened, carried a solemn weight. "I have made adjustments to protect the future of our family," he began. "Edward will oversee the company, but the inheritance will be divided equally. None of you are above the rest." His words hit like a thunderclap. Edward's face darkened with barely contained rage. "This is a mistake, Father," he argued. "You're putting the future of our business at risk by pandering to sentimentality." Lillian, on the other hand, wore a mask of calm, though her eyes gleamed with triumph. "An equal share seems only fair," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Thomas remained silent, his expression unreadable. Yet deep within, the seeds of his own plan were taking root. Unbeknownst to the rest of the family, Charles's decision had set in motion a chain of events that would unravel the Montgomery legacy. Long-buried secrets were about to resurface, alliances would shift, and betrayal would strike at the heart of the family. As the meeting ended, Eleanor looked on with a sense of dread. "This will tear us apart," she whispered to Charles. He simply nodded, his face etched with sorrow, as if he too knew that the bonds of blood were no match for the corrosive power of greed. In the days following Charles Montgomery's announcement, the tension in the family grew unbearable. The grand estate, once a haven of luxury and tranquility, had turned into a battleground. Every conversation was loaded with hidden meanings, every glance tinged with suspicion. Edward, furious at his father's decision, began digging into his siblings' lives, convinced that one of them had influenced Charles. He hired a private investigator to tail both Lillian and Thomas, seeking evidence that would discredit them. "There's no way they deserve an equal share," he muttered, pacing his office. "I've worked too hard for this." Meanwhile, Lillian played a more subtle game. Known for her charm and social prowess, she began forging alliances with key board members of the Montgomery enterprise. She hosted exclusive dinner parties, subtly planting seeds of doubt about Edward's capability as a leader. "Edward may have experience," she'd say with a delicate smile, "but leadership requires more than ambition. It needs diplomacy, something he lacks." Thomas, on the other hand, remained an enigma. Though he had returned to the estate, he kept his distance from family affairs, instead spending his days in the old guest house. He claimed he had no interest in the family business, but his actions suggested otherwise. Late at night, he could be seen meeting with unknown individuals, lawyers, financiers, and even old acquaintances from his time abroad. Rumors began to swirl about Thomas's involvement in shady dealings, but nothing concrete surfaced. As tensions mounted, Eleanor grew increasingly distressed. She had spent her life holding the family together, but now it felt as though everything was slipping through her fingers. Desperate to preserve what little harmony remained, she arranged a family dinner, hoping to clear the air. But the dinner only made things worse. "What's your endgame, Thomas?" Edward asked coldly, breaking the uneasy silence. "You disappear for years, and now you expect an equal share?" Thomas leaned back in his chair, his expression calm, but his eyes sharp. "Maybe I didn't want anything to do with this family back then," he replied. "But things change, and I won't apologize for claiming what's rightfully mine." Lillian, sensing an opportunity to fan the flames, added, "It's amusing, isn't it? Edward, always so certain he's the only one fit to lead. Maybe Father finally saw through that arrogance." Edward slammed his hand on the table, causing the silverware to rattle. "You think this is a game? This is about the future of our legacy." Before the argument could escalate further, Eleanor intervened. "Enough!" she cried, her voice trembling with emotion. "This is exactly what I feared. Your father wanted you to stand together, not tear each other apart." Her plea was met with silence, but the damage was done. Each sibling left the table more determined than ever to secure their position. A revelation that changes everything. Days later, everything changed with the discovery of a hidden document in Charles's study. While sorting through her husband's papers, Eleanor stumbled upon an old envelope marked "Confidential." Inside was a letter addressed to her, dated years earlier. The letter revealed a shocking secret. Charles had fathered a child out of wedlock during a brief affair before their marriage. The child, now an adult, had no knowledge of their lineage. The letter expressed Charles's guilt and his desire to someday acknowledge this lost heir. Eleanor was devastated. The revelation threatened to shatter the already fragile family dynamics. If the truth came to light, it could upend the inheritance entirely. Yet, keeping the secret meant betraying Charles's wishes. Torn between loyalty to her late husband and protecting her children, she confided in her closest friend, Margaret. "You must tell them," Margaret urged. "Secrets have a way of coming out, and if they find out from someone else—" But Eleanor hesitated. The thought of adding more fuel to the fire was unbearable. She decided to keep the letter hidden, for now. Little did she know, someone had already seen her with the envelope. An anonymous threat. A few nights later, Eleanor received a chilling note slipped under her bedroom door. "I know what you're hiding. Tell the family, or I will." Panic gripped her. Who could have known? She suspected it might be one of the staff, but the handwriting didn't match anyone she recognized. The note left her no choice. If she didn't act soon, someone else would. Meanwhile, Edward's investigator uncovered a surprising lead about Thomas. It turned out that Thomas had secretly met with a prominent legal firm known for handling corporate takeovers. Though the details were unclear, it suggested that Thomas might be planning to contest the trust and gain full control of his share. Edward wasted no time confronting him. "I know what you're up to," he said, barging into the guest house. "You think you can take this company from me?" Thomas, unbothered by his brother's outburst, replied calmly, "I'm just exploring my options, Edward. Isn't that what you always taught me? Business is war?" Their confrontation ended without resolution, but Edward knew he couldn't let his guard down. The stakes were higher than ever, and he was running out of time. Meanwhile, Lillian continued her behind-the-scenes maneuvering, unaware that Eleanor was struggling with a secret that could change everything. The Montgomery family was teetering on the brink, each member driven by greed, fear, and a desire for control. And then, just as things seemed like they couldn't get any worse, an unexpected visitor arrived at the estate, a figure from Charles's past who would bring with them revelations that none of the Montgomerys were prepared for. The unexpected visitor turned out to be someone no one had anticipated, a man named Jonathan Beckett, who claimed to be Charles Montgomery's illegitimate son. Jonathan had received an anonymous tip about his connection to the Montgomery family and had come seeking answers. His arrival sent shockwaves through the estate, with each family member reacting in their own way, some with disbelief, others with anger. Edward was the first to confront Jonathan. "You have no right to be here," he said, his voice laced with hostility. "This is a private matter, and you're not part of this family." Jonathan, calm but firm, replied, "Whether you like it or not, I am Charles Montgomery's son. I have proof." He handed over a birth certificate and letters exchanged between Charles and Jonathan's late mother, confirming his claim. Eleanor, watching from a distance, felt her world crumble. She had hoped to keep this secret buried, but now it was out in the open, and there was no going back. "I didn't want it to happen like this," she whispered to herself, tears welling in her eyes. A battle for control with Jonathan's claim validated, the family faced a new dilemma. Would he have a right to a share of the inheritance? Legally, his status as an heir could challenge the existing trust. The revelation only intensified the already volatile situation. Edward, desperate to maintain control, proposed an emergency board meeting to block any changes to the company's leadership. "We need to act fast," he told Lillian and Thomas. "If we don't, everything Father built could be lost." Lillian, always calculating, saw an opportunity. "Or," she said with a sly smile, "we could use this to our advantage. Let Jonathan's arrival shake things up. It might weaken your position, Edward." Thomas, ever the outsider, remained silent but observant. He had no intention of siding with either of his siblings, instead plotting his own path to power. He reached out to Jonathan privately, offering an alliance. "They'll try to push you out," Thomas warned, "but together we can secure what's rightfully ours." Jonathan, wary of Thomas's motives but intrigued by the offer, agreed to consider it. The two began strategizing in secret, forming a plan that would change the course of the family's future. The final confrontation. As tensions reached their peak, Eleanor decided she could no longer remain silent. Gathering the family in the grand hall, she addressed them with a heavy heart. "This is not what your father wanted," she began, her voice trembling. "He dreamed of a family united, not torn apart by greed and mistrust." Edward, impatient, interrupted. "With all due respect, Mother, this isn't just about family, it's about business, and we can't let emotions cloud our judgment." Before Eleanor could respond, Jonathan stepped forward. "I didn't come here to tear your family apart," he said. "I came here for the truth. And whether you accept me or not, I deserve to know my place in this legacy." The room fell into an uneasy silence. It was clear that the situation had spiraled out of control, and unless a resolution was reached, the Montgomery Empire might collapse under the weight of its internal strife. In a surprising turn of events, it was Lillian who proposed a solution. "Let's put aside our differences and create a new agreement, one that acknowledges Jonathan's place without destroying what we've built." Her suggestion, though unexpected, was met with cautious approval. Over the next few days, the family worked together to draft a revised trust, ensuring that each member, including Jonathan, had a fair share. It wasn't an easy process, and tensions still ran high, but for the first time in years, there was a glimmer of hope. A new beginning. With the new agreement in place, the Montgomery family began to heal. Edward remained at the helm of the company, but with the support of his siblings. Lillian focused on expanding the family's philanthropic efforts, while Thomas found his niche managing a new branch of the business. Jonathan, though still an outsider in many ways, became a respected part of the family, bringing fresh ideas and perspectives. Eleanor, relieved that the family had found a way forward, reflected on the ordeal. "Charles would have been proud," she said quietly to herself one evening, standing by the window of the grand hall. "Not because of the wealth or the business, but because we found a way to stay together." Though the scars of betrayal and greed remained, the Montgomerys learned an invaluable lesson. A legacy isn't just about wealth or power, it's about the people who carry it forward. And in the end, it was their ability to come together, despite their differences, that ensured the survival of the Montgomery name. As the sun set over the Westwood estate, casting a golden glow on the sprawling grounds, it marked not just the end of a chapter, but the beginning of a new one, a future built not on greed, but on unity and trust. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more stories like this, hit that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let me know on which topic you would like to see stories next. And check out these other stories you might enjoy. See you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.